2020. I'll start again. 2020. It has been a year unlike no other in memory. A recent meme comes to mind. 2020, the leap year. It had 29 days in February, 300 days in March, and 5 years in April. And that's just as far as April. If you were to look on social media, you would likely find a lot of these humorous commentaries on our current situation. And depending on your sense of humor, some of these are very laugh out loud funny. And some of them might only induce a tight smile of understanding with a little anxiety thrown in. I could share more of these, and then we could share a few laughs. But the fact of the matter is, there is very little funny about 2020. We are living through a pandemic that has resulted in 26,171,112 confirmed cases of COVID-19 worldwide, with 865,154 deaths, according to the World Health Organization. And that's as of today. In the United States, there have been 6,176,623 confirmed cases, with 187,200 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins University. And the Indiana Department of Health reports that the pandemic has caused 97,884 confirmed cases in the state, with 3,127 deaths due to COVID-19. Tomorrow, these numbers will be higher. Beyond COVID-19, in 2020, the trend of violent and deadly racial injustice continued and sent off cycles of protest across the country. The local and national response to these protests and the violence that has resulted in some of them leaves many questioning the status of our American civil liberties, not to mention the ineffectiveness of our society's response to structural racism. And as if these weren't enough to contend with, all of this is happening in a context of polarized, often toxic political discourse that sometimes sounds to me like it is downright un-American. How did we find ourselves talking to each other this way? These ongoing serious problems are woven through the activities of everyday life in 2020. And I don't know about you, but often I feel deeply hopeless. I feel despair. I worry that things will never get better. This week, we read from the book of Isaiah, chapter 60. The verses begin. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Eternal One rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. But the Eternal One rises upon you, and the Eternal One's glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. These verses from Isaiah were a direct inspiration for the words of Lecha Dodi that we prayed just a few minutes ago as we greeted Shabbat. Hitoreri, kiva orech kumi ori, uri, shir dabari, kavod, Adonai alaich nigla. Awake, awake, the light is come. Arise, shine, awake, and sing. The Eternal's glory dawns upon you. These weekly verses from the prophets, called the Haftarah, generally serve one of two purposes. Sometimes they directly complement the weekly Torah reading. Other times, they connect to a seasonal theme. I think that these verses fall into the latter category. In the weeks before Rosh Hashanah, as we reflect on our lives and account for our souls, these readings from the prophets are called the Haftarot of consolation. These readings tell us that, like the Israelites who lost everything and were exiled to Babylon, God will be there for us, shining like the sun to warm our souls and to guide us toward eternal. Furthermore, our way of relating to God and God's way of relating to us is an inspiration to the nations of the world. These verses console us, guide us back, inspire us and those that we live with. But as my rabbi, Michael Adam Latz from Minneapolis, often teaches, Torah and Jewish communal life are not meant to be a spiritual jacuzzi. Jewish texts and ritual life do not exist merely to make us feel good. They inspire us and they call us to action. It is not enough that God's light shines upon us. God's light reveals our way of life in covenant with God. Our way of taking care of the world and of each other is to be an inspiration. But that means that we have to do something and not merely be comforted, consoled by God's light. What do we do? And how do we do it? It's all so big. The prophet Micah, who we read during the summer months when we're reading the book of Numbers, guides us on turning inspiration into action. Micah teaches, "The Eternal has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Eternal One require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." According to Micah, God requires that we do three things. First, we must act with justice. We must act for justice. Second, we must love mercy, loving kindness, and lavish that upon other human beings. And finally, we must walk humbly with God. It doesn't say sit in shul with God. It doesn't say read Torah with God. It says walk. We must be active in the world, and we must do so humbly, open to the experiences, to the pain and suffering, to the joy of others. The prophets offer us an alternative and a solution to despair in our deeply broken world. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Eternal One rises upon you. May that light be upon us, and may we all be worthy reflections of God's light. May we walk humbly together to carry that light into the world, to illuminate the darkness. Shabbat Shalom.